game number 3. Hello guys and welcome to TFT EU Regional Finals Set 10, last day.
Someone like, let's say, Wet Jungler, because Wet Jungler now is stuck in a situation where he has to start taking risks that you might conceive to be kind of unnecessary, right? But he has to take them because he needs to kind of climb back in the standings.
Absolutely right. However, none of these portals really are giving options for a very high chance, high risk play coming through here. It is going to be the augment payout, very low impact, just a little bit of extra gold, and everybody's getting the same one. So he'll have to maybe rely on something like a prismatic augment coming through, or even just a really crazy cook like that Mordekaiser reroll we saw from Jidosaur. Although I personally think probably doesn't cap high enough for the finish that he needs.
That's the thing also keep in mind here, is the fact that what you're looking at here is that some econ augments, right, can go up in value in something like the augment payout, because if you get like a Rich Get Richer or a Hedgeman, something like that, you get the additional goals to kind of put yourself closer to that extra econ breakpoint.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that longer term. You mentioned we were getting only the small amount of gold coming in on the first version. Once we hit that third augment, though, that will be a lot of money coming in to accelerate these late game boards. Or maybe, admittedly, it could also be used to try and finish off some of these reroll boards. I think we'll definitely see the big spikes come in later on.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's high variance enough for something like really out of the pocket, as we have seen with Wandering Trainer or Prismatic Symphony games. I love how the level up actually just went from the bottom to the top player there on the right-hand side. That was very visually pleasing to me, just getting it out there. Love that overlay. Checking in with Chinar, currently hasn't picked up any headliner just yet, is still thinking about where to go. From our broadcast stat perspective, the Yasuo is maybe not the thing you should go for.
I think that's putting it very mildly, right? I mean, that's that version. Okay. So Chanel, ran the Lulu reroll in the previous game. We know what hologram will do for Lulu reroll.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things where you get those two freestyle Lulus with the hyper pop just cranking each other up to they become these absolute huge menaces here, right? And that's why this is taking such a long time, because you also got to kind of look around the lobby, figure out what's going on here. You have someone like Wet Jungler now on that march of progress. Do you want to match with Shinar? He has absolutely incredible options here.
March. I feel like March is always a little bit risky. I personally would go for the hologram. Chinar decides to do exactly the same. He had a good finish in that previous game, second place with the Lulu, like you said it, Wida. Running it back is an option here, but we have also seen stuff like a Senna hologram, and now we're getting a view of what everybody else is on. I'm personally looking for Wet Jungler, who has chosen to go for the March.
Yeah, and Fresh going for the March as well, which we saw what happened in the previous lobby when too many players try and follow the same kind of line of play. We're fascinated to see what it ends up being. Certainly March means that we've got the potential to move up to level 6, level 7 and get those rerolls running just a little bit sooner than they might have otherwise.
Yeah, this is about like compositions like Lulu, like Seraphine even as well. It's just like the kill reroll line. Like you want to roll on level 7 on these compositions to get access to your very powerful free costs, and not having to spend that extra gold just translating into so many extra rolls here could be an absolutely massive bonus of those costs. But someone else taking a completely different approach here is going to be Salvi with the Living Forge, playing for tempo with the Collector.
Collector, definitely nice for that early tempo, and we know that Salvia is very much capable of playing that. I personally got really excited by a different augment, and that is the one that we are seeing on Dark Hydra. Going long is not an augment we see a whole lot of, because of how awkwardly it can play. It means you don't get any interest anymore, and instead you just gain a little bit of gold and you gain XP at the start of the round. So very, very curious on how Dark Hydra is going to maneuver that one.
Well, we're in a kind of similar situation of March of Progress there, where you're just kind of getting propelled up levels without having to spend. I think, if we are looking for some big late game boards, rather, I think going long is a really great way to push forward and find those really over-the-top boards without having to spend the money on the XP.
Yeah, and it is so much extra XP that you do get, right? So it really does allow you to kind of push into some absolutely insane positions here. We saw Wet Jungler go with the much with the Punk opener before. Like we've seen him prioritize this Vi already, right? It's a strong early game unit that's super disposable. And again, he's going to be playing a traditional board with this March of Progress, so this makes perfect sense here.
Yeah, very popular unit, just generally speaking. Similar to that Corki that we are seeing on the other side from Salvi. Of course, in the first couple of rounds, it is going to be important who can actually build out a streak. And we know that some players prefer those win streaks to the lose streaks. For now, it is going to be a Salvi who can keep going just on the back-of-back collector, getting so much value here in the early game.
I think further to what we were saying earlier on, like, I think it's the players who are on the lower points totals which are really going to be the ones who have to take the riskier path. Because, of course, lost streaking, you lose the HP, you put yourself in a position to potentially get eliminated. If you're win streaking, you've got so much more room to maneuver longer term.
Carousel, no spatulas available. That's always a little bit of a relief, specifically in these prismatics lobbies where the tempo already accelerates. Getting extra spatulas out just makes it even crazier, so I'm personally excited to see that we're taking it slower here.
I'm a little bit scared. I like when I saw the dummy from Data, so I was like, all right, we just play Riven. Then I realized it's items time, so like, okay, we cannot play Riven. But like getting a Seek's Herald as well as a Banshee as well for a Riven reroll competition would have been an absolute godsend. It saves you that QSS, it gives you even more attack speed for your Riven and just puts her over the edge. But that's not going to be the case this time around here. Dark Hydra, as you're talking about, look at how much XP, like look how close he is to level 6. If he was on a win streak here, he could push 6 without really doing anything like to hurt him, right? But again, because you talked about the fact that he gets with the augment here, right? He doesn't want to pump any gold into XP because that gold he just needs to like build up, and then invest it all when he gets to level 8.
I mean, he's certainly got a decent enough board to get going on with for the time being. The Annie headliner item carrying very well for maybe a later game Ari board, and it's kept from Dark Hydra taking too much in the way of losses for the time being. As you mentioned, the interest goal will not be a factor, but he will still have a pretty, solid path throughout the game, going up every round with a little bit more XP, just trickling his way up to bigger and stronger boards.
Absolutely right. And speaking of those bigger and stronger boards, we are expecting both I'm So Fresh and Wet Jungler, of course, on the back of that March to really go for a reroll comp, and we will keep our eyes on them as well. So there is still a lot of power spikes that are to be expected in this game. But here's Chinar, who is on that hologram, and he's currently running the Bard, and I personally love this.
I mean, it's making a great, we're doing a great job of placeholding for what we're looking for longer term, but I really like as well. We've got a solid headliner which we can duplicate. We've got solid items already. I really like what Chanel's got going on here, along with the only substantial loss streak as well.
So the thing is that there are again, there is this Bard Kaiser line that I don't think we've seen so much of this weekend, but it is a super potent reroll line when it actually does hit. So this could be like a different out that he ends up playing for. I'm really excited to see whether or not that's going to be the case here. But again, he is on that hostile, has to build up. We'll get the first cash out now, so we'll be on those breakpoints no matter what.
He's just going to print money. Double the Bard, double the money, extra hard steal. It's just so cool to see how this is going to come together for Chinar personally.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, having the heart still in place as well for Shinar while keeping that loss streak going is fantastic. Coming to the end of stage 2, though, to go from loss streaks up to win streak, Jedusor and Salvi, they both made it out of this early going with a fully intact win streak, a decent amount of gold, and of course getting paid off even more on the PvE round.
Finds the set here from the cash out. So right now we are in a spot we can kind of continue with the hostile if we want to, but it does not seem like it's something he's interested in at this very moment, right? The thing is that when you play hostile this early on, you sacrifice so much HP, he's already down to 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's the risk. I think particularly in something like a prismatic lobby, going for those loss streaks, you just know you're going to get hit for even more. Everybody is going to be stronger, more units on board, stuff like that. And that can be too risky. So I'm personally not too mad that he's opting to maybe switch out the heart still and try to actually go for something a little bit more solid where he doesn't bleed as much.
I'm looking though, we got the set on the bench, another set in the shop. That's going to be a little bit tempting to be greedy and go for the heart steal if you can hit it early on. Wet Jungler though, I mean, he's the player with so many eyes on him in this lobby. I think we were talking about a little bit earlier on that he needs to play super high variance from now on, which could end up with, Wet Jungler ultimately ending out the tournament very low in this top 8 if these big games don't come through for him.
I really dislike Wet Jungler going for the Seraphine. I don't know how you're feeling, but the stats do not support this comp from everything we've seen. It's been doing so badly. And I just hope that this is a temporary fill-in on the Seraphine and we're not actually going all the way. For Volta, we're also seeing, once again, a Riven being hold. He says, if there's an option, I might go for it, I am Volterix. Maybe I can find a Riven just randomly.
Yeah, with the Yasuo being built up as well, right? Like, it's going to be one of the interesting things to kind of keep in mind here, that he gets his own free one, he has 20 goals, so he's in a good spot to kind of build behind this. We've seen the Yasuos over the course of the weekend really hit a little bit too late and then not have good items for it, but with the bird treasures coming in, Volta's in a great spot.
I mean, the Yasuo ball was so bad so often because people were, inevitably holding the Yasuo, but Volta's managed to get past that anyway. With the Vampirism coming in as well, to be able to provide a little bit more chunk to the board. I'm really excited to actually finally see a Yasuo board do well.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, not me, because I don't want to jinx this guy. But we are getting golden augments come through here, and that is going to slow down the lobby tempo just a little bit. Interestingly enough, we are seeing Scapeus go for the emo augment, and that is something we might need to check in for because we are on an Annie reroll line.
Wow.
And sometimes it just gives an Annie, right? Sometimes like augments, like even the too big to fail for Bruises, right? The fact you get those one costs can be such a big deal. It's like pushing you over the edge per tempo wise. And for someone like Volterix now with this Annie free, with the blue buff, with the Nashes too, if he's in such a good spot to just play this game out from here.
I personally love playing New Recruit with a one-cost reroll because normally you are a little bit slower in the early stages because you're not leveling, you're losing out on early fights. With the New Recruit, you're kind of counteracting that. So it's really cool for me to see this one, and he has the Annie already, arguably, is going to do well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it all plays so well together. The new recruiters you mentioned, the extra body on the board, the emotional connection, spreading out the emo mana generation to more units. And we've seen, if we talk about stats makes from the first couple of days, Annie rerolled stats are ludicrously good.
Yeah, they are. Checking in with I'm So Fresh, though, who's currently on the Kale, has another Kale 2 on bench already. But you can see he rolled down a lot of gold already and wasn't able to make that Kale 3 come online. Positive point is we do have the Mordekaiser 2 at least that should allow to get a little bit of time buying there. But we're not running the super fan, so we don't have that extra item. And also, we don't really have Kale items just yet here.
Now we're kind of in a bit of a weird spot here, right? 2 Ashlord, 2 Pentakill, 2 Superfan, as you're pointing out, right? So when you look at someone like Salvi, who's very clear in this direction, Rage Bait slammed, Red Buff slammed. We're going to try to play Ezreal, we're going to try to play Illusion, try to push Fast 9.
Yeah, that Salvi's board is crazy good. He's on a win streak right now with the items absolutely coming through. Bear in mind, Salvi has Living Forge as well, so the longer he lasts, the more extra artifacts he's going to get coming through, and the stronger he'll become.
And he definitely is strong, currently 100 HP and still streaking at the bottom of the leaderboard. We have our first players under 50. And once again, we're going to get a carousel with no spatulas, no high rewards for being at the bottom of the leaderboard for them now. That could have kind of boxed them out of a bad situation. We'll need to keep Horizon, I'm So Fresh, and Chinar. Chinar did win that last round, so I'm not too worried about him. But I'm So Fresh seems to be in a pickle.
Yeah, those are some low HP tells. You can see Dark Hydra ahead by a chunk. I think with Fresh keeping the loss streak intact is fine for Shinar. You can see he's trying to refix his board. At least we've got a couple of Aries dropping in early on to try and make this board stronger. But players up towards the top end are also making their board stronger right now. The true damage emblem in place from level 6 on the Ari for Wet Jungler. This is looking real good.
I love this. I was talking about the Seraphine being a little bit of a hater, him saying, nah, I was just playing that for tempo, I'm going for the Senna instead. We have the extra Senna on bench, as well as the 2 damage emblem on Ari, like you pointed out. This is really cool and has a lot of potential when it's not currently going up against a very annoying Yasuo.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like the frustration on Wet Jungler's face here, right? He knows that this comes down to his positioning, but his positioning is tied to that KDA pattern, right? So cannot really do a whole lot about this, and Salvi just keeps on taking names.
Yeah, when he's melting faces here, this is a 9-round win streak. Bear in mind, Salvi is our current tournament leader on 15 points. You know, was discussing on this before, all he needs are good finishes. And what he's got on board right now seems to be oriented towards a great finish.
Shinar finds a Lulu, but this is not Lulu 3 just yet. It is the headliner though, so we got the hologram going. We just saw this board, lots of moves being made. He went to 7, rolled down, tried to find everything he could. Now, don't let this fool you. He is not that close to the Lulu 3 just yet. That is hologram. We're needing many more copies to get her fully online.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Well, I wanted to see what his item decisions here were going to be. Like, we're going to say, you know what, I have the Spear Shogun on the Lulu, that's going to be enough here. But no, he wants to get that blue buff onto the Lulu for even more active casting with the Giant Slayer on the Ari here. Also worth noting, this is not the Hyperpop Lulu, so the top end is a little bit different. Have to play more of a traditional Spellweaver board.
Still, though, I'm pretty impressed with what we got out of that one. As you know, Mix, this is not remotely the final form of the we haven't got the Ari fully itemized yet either. It's still able to take down what had been a very terrifying looking 3-star Yasuo that had been tearing a hole through most of the lobby.
See, I want to love it, but similar to Dark Hydra, both Shinar and Dark Hydra are having the KDA patches that I personally hate playing around. They lock you in so much, you mentioned it earlier, and with something like a Yasuo or even a Riven, if anybody goes for that, you're going to be in such a tough position to try and out-position that because you're locked to that triangle form, the hoverboard, the pyramid, however you want to call it. It can be really, really weird.
Triple offensive masterwork upgrade here for Salvi. Probably would have liked to see a defensive option here for the Yakko. And now it's kind of to figure out what is my secondary carry going to be in this situation. Right? We've seen Mana Sane Ezreal before. Sniper's Focus, also a premier damage item.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly looking pretty darn good. We got the Contagion as well for more damage, so certainly Salvi not hurting for backline itemization at all. Manzane means we're going to be getting a little bit more casting in the mix as Jazz enters the board. Salvi has been spending to keep this win streak intact. You can see, he started off around 70 gold, has spent down to 30 because he is running roughshod over the lobby right now and he does not want to stop.
Rightfully so. If you have it going, why would you want to stop it? On the other side, though, we are checking back in with that 1-cost reroll from Scapeus, and on the back of that new recruit, he has the same amount of units on board. That is going to do it. He is going to knock Salvi down just a little bit. Not to fret, he still has 91 HP while the first players are bleeding out, and he does have That's Jazz Baby offered, does not go for it, goes for the Lotus instead.
There's like a thing here to keep in mind as well, right? That when we saw like MF reroll be a thing at the start of the sets, it was more of the fact about the power level of MF2 allowing you to get towards that level 8. So careful, effortlessly here. But we can see our Dark Hydra does not care about the fact that we have Shinar on the hologram line. He's going to go down alongside Shinar if that's what it's going to take here with the pickup of that Lulu free.
That is outrageous to do in this lobby. Oh my gosh. I was going to ask you for some counting lessons, Meg, to see how many Lulus you've got in this lobby, but I mean, we've seen it already. As the 3 stars are starting to rain in, these boards are taking off, and there are definitely going to be some players who end up getting left behind.
And you can see it on Shinar's face, right? When you pick up that hologram prismatic, this is basically the same thing as going into the chat of your game lobby and writing me Lulu, no pivot, no scout, and Dark Hydra just absolutely ignoring and disrespecting that, rolling down, finds that Lulu instead on the back of his going long that we talked about earlier, is devastating to our friend from Turkey. Shinar is going to have such a bad time with that, and then as if that wasn't enough, he also goes up against Salvi and gets one massive hit once again. He definitely needs to make something happen to recover this situation.
And just to go further on that point as well, the Dark Hydra took the heroic grab bag to get the couple of duplicators left to make sure that happened. This is turning into a really vicious final. Our players desperately want to get back onto the world stage, or indeed get there for the first time. It's, you know, it's such an honor to be able to play against the best players in the world, and they'll do anything to get there.
I love seeing the Zephyr come out on the side of Jidusaur against Scapeus. Now, if you don't know, Scapeus was known for Zephyring, for ratting out people on the Zephyr for the longest time. He showed it off yesterday as well, and now that same item is going to be used against him, but it's not enough. Jidusaur on the 7 Heartsteel, moving closer and closer to that cash out, but taking hits. 30 HP is not a whole lot.
On this carousel here, Yori could be big for a lot of the Pentakill players, right? You also have a Kiana, right? These are 2 prime units, and the components aren't necessarily that bad either here, but Assault for Shinar on a Blitzcrank could be pretty good here. Just, generally speaking, the lobby right now is kind of starting to fall in place.
I mean, we've got the HP totals really starting to separate out. Our top 3, Salvi, Scapeus, Wet Jungler, 60s and 70s HP. You look down at, you know, Shinar, Jedusor, and Dark Hydra in particular. I mean, we mentioned right back at the beginning, we need to see some players play really, really risky. Shinar, for me, isn't one of those players who needs to be playing hyper risky, but he's still on very low HP even at this point.
I'm starting to worry about the bottom 3, personally speaking. Just looking at them and then looking how healthy the top 3 are is giving me a lot of worries. And you can see it here from Shinar just rolling down desperately, still so far off of anything really here. That kind of opens up the question of, can you maybe find a different carry? Can you maybe try and find an out of this with something like maybe a Ziggs headliner if you get there, but you're level 8, so it's gonna be a ride, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it.
Yeah, and the big thing here, right, you can kind of look at to the opposite side of the field here. So many people are kind of hogging onto the Nikos, hogging onto the Echoes here, really limiting Shinar's frontline options because the Lulu themselves are doing a ton of work with that Ari to support it. So it is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a weak board. It just has a frontline issue.
Yeah, at this point, I think in round 3, Shinar has been having a very good first couple of games. Definitely, it's a danger point of being, exactly said, Mate, saying, you know, why has Dark Hydra inflicted this upon me? But, you know, if he can even eke out a couple more places.
Too. That it's so mean from Dark Hydra, but sometimes you just gotta play to your outs. Here's the cash out from Jidusaur, just checking in, gets a duplicator, rolls down, does have the Ezreal already online, so the main carry is there, but the front line could be better.
Ooh. Not bad, though. I mean, yeah, we don't have the Zed, who would be amazing, but we do have, surprisingly, at level 8, 2 2-star 5 costs. I guess they'll have to do.
That's without using the duplicator as well, Peter, right? Still gets a big shot in there as well with the Jhin here. The Jhin will not necessarily get like a lot of damage output right now. Doesn't have any items on him at this very moment, but such a huge upgrade here. But you can see the bottom dip on the opposite side of the field from Salvi. He ended up picking up that Ezreal we're talking about.
Definitely some massive hits coming through here from Jidusaur is going to be enough to deal with Salvi's board, of course. All those legendaries doing him well. Worried about the rest of the outcome of this lobby, though.
You can see Salvi sitting on that 200, like 180 catcher coming through right now. Did not get over that 200 breakpoint, but it's a bit of an extra injection. And we can see right now at the bottom of the screen here, Dark Hydra, yet again, struggling, might be on his way to another 8th.
Makes, I really feel like you need to express that observation there, because...
So in that last round, Shinar beat Dark Hydra. After Dark Hydra took his Lulu away, I feel like at least that's some kind of revenge settling in, some redemption. But of course that also means that Dark Hydra is now on his last life, technically 10 HP, stage 4-7, probably not going to be enough to survive depending on who you're running into, and Salvi going all the way for level 9 here.
I mean, while Salvi builds up, we definitely, of course, if Dark Hydra goes out early on, that is the get out of jail free card that Shinar needed. But yeah, we've got so many players with great boards coming together that it may still not be enough time, because these boards are pretty much, you know, where they want to be right now, let alone waiting for somebody else to die before you really hit.
A lot of tough decisions here for Salvi, right? Didn't necessarily find the needed frontline upgrade, which could be the saving grace of Dark Hydra.
Dark Hydra on the other side, we were just talking about this one. Doesn't have the RE2 yet, doesn't have the Ziggs 2 yet, but maybe, just maybe, that Lulu 3 is enough, but she is under attack. She is getting overrun. And Dark Hydra, once again, gets knocked out here in this round. Not a great day. The previous days, he had an 8th place and then was able to turn it around. Today seems to be the opposite.
Oh my gosh. Well, in day 2, he did get 2 8s in a row, so maybe we're just going to complete the trifecta, but I don't think anybody had it on their bingo card, seeing Dark Hydra going 8th in consecutive games here in the Grand Finals. He is our reigning regional champion. He's one of the frontrunners to win the entire thing, but everything's been thrown up in the air. Scapeus currently on a win streak at the top of the lobby, and the HP total's dropping precipitously. Can't even say it.
Jedusor, 2 wins on the back of the legendary Galore, goes up against Volta. I think we should be checking in with Chinar here. He's on 11 HP and Jedusor is probably healthy enough to go up against the Yasuo. We're gonna hop on over and see how he does. Here's Chinar, here's the hologram. And we are seeing what I'm very, very excited to note. He did switch off the Lulu headliner. He went for a Poppy instead. More frontline to buy that Ahri some time and absolutely saying goodbye to the Lulu.
And it's exactly as you said, Wheater. With a little bit more out of the way, with Dark Hydra gone, we were able to find some upgrades to the front line, but Shinar has spent so much money just getting to this point. I have to wonder how much further he can push.
And there's another showcasing of Shinar's understanding of the game, where we saw in the previous game, switching off the Kale, going into the Lulu, here understanding that the hologram line was only going to be temporary in terms of the backline access, and getting those 2 poppies in the front line with the Emo Mosha online is such a big thing to do.
On the other side is Wet Jungler, 22 HP. He has enough, but Chinar needs to hang in there. Same for Jedu. He lost the previous round. Both of these players still trying to go strong, but the Poppy, she falls. Can the Ahri clutch it out? Can she find the Senna? She's getting distracted by a cannon here. Will make her way to that Senna eventually, and it is going to be enough for Chinar.
1v1 bruv, right at the end. We're coming down to the wire here for so many players. You point out, Wet Jungler and Shinar are on the 10s, Fresh and Jedusor on single digits. Only Scapeus is keeping its head above the crowd right now, but the results of this game are going to be incredibly hard fought.
Yeah, and also worth noting, right, Wet Jungler, he was in such a good spot, so stable, but the RE2 just never arrived, and that's the issue with something like March of Progress. You might hit earlier on in the game, but then you cannot capitalize on that. You cannot go level 8, try to find your upgrades here. He's been sat at the mercy of the shops on those lower levels for a while now, trying to find that RE2, and it hasn't arrived.
All right, we did see I'm So Fresh's board there for a second. He does have the Pentakill emblem online together with the Kale, but doesn't seem to be good enough to keep him in this lobby here. So much power from everybody else, and we are seeing some changes being made.
I mean, we've got, we're going to spend out and get at least some of these 5 costs upgraded, but there's so many boards where they're just hoping, praying they can hold on for one more round. The Kale being moved to the side very slightly as we get to start to see our players on low HP running headfirst into each other. This is where the eliminations start flying.
I'm So Fresh against Jedusor. Only one can make it out of this bracket alive. A bit of a mean matchup for the Francophone fans, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. And this time around, it's not going to be the only thing that crumbles. Kale, not enough against the Pentakill arrangement of the other side. Can the Akali do it? Big question. Goals come running. I don't think so. The Yorick so much stronger here, but
almost. But we've now got 3 eliminated players. Fresh out, Shinar out, Wet Jungler is out as well. We're down to our top 4, and that's going to be big, a big disappointment for Wet Jungler, especially not to finish higher and try and climb back up the table.
Yeah, this was his game as well, right? Because look at who's below him. Dark Hydra Shinar in the standings. These are the players you would love to gain some points on. But it was just not meant to be this game. Meanwhile, for someone like Jejusaw here, who can really put himself into a driving position to kind of make a claim for that top 4.
I love Scapeus' run here. I mentioned it earlier on, playing around the 1 cost with a new recruit and just playing to your strengths with the Annie is so cool to see. And he's been keeping his head high after a little bit of an unfortunate start. But once again, Jejusaw goes up against a Francophone companion, Volta. On the other side with the Yasuo reroll, can he find his way through, or is the Yasuo going to stay on top? And the answer is clearly written here. Jejusaw out in 4th.
That's going to be, you mentioned, some of the highest scoring players have taken the hits here, but the big exception to that is Salvi. Shinar in 2nd place takes a 6th. Jejusaw below takes a 4th. Salvi, if he comes out of this game strong, he's going to have a massive lead on everybody else.
Yeah, and it would be such a big thing, full circle moment for competitive TFT if Salvi would finally get a regionals win, more or less the only player on the OG crew of the top players to not have been in a championship, to not have won a regional title on top of that as well. Huge inflection of gold here as well now for Salvi. Could look towards a level 10, could look towards a 3-star 4 cost. The options are plenty.
Look at him vibing. He's just absolutely jamming out there in his own little world. Lots of money for him and Scapeus both. Volta rolling down, finds the Akali 2. Big question is that going to be enough to do something here? 2 wins thus far. The Yasuo supported now by the rest of the True Damage crew. You can see there's still potential. We have the Kiana still on 1 star, but goes up against Salvi.
Yeah, there's so many backline carries here to get through, though. And the Yasuo is going to get stuck for a little while on the Blitzcrank. Does get through, but is searching through a quite cluttered backfield. We'll be able to take out the Lucian relatively early on into the mix, which is absolutely huge. Ezreal, though, is a little harder to nail down. And you can see with the executions coming in from the Gold Collector as well, I think might be able to swing the matchup back. That's a big win for Salvi.
Yeah, and Scapeus went off screen as well, right? So Voltarius right now in unlike one of the biggest tested hikes he's probably been on in a while here, with just the 7 points, puts him at 13 with this 3rd, right? Scapeus also a player that really needed to get those points in, right? So really, really big game here, but Volta would have loved to be even further up the standings, but not to be the case here. And now the real big question is, does Scapeus or does Salvi take this lobby?
Personally, I just want to commend Volta for actually not running down the Heartsteel or the Riven. We're seeing a little bit of a change here, but maybe it's enough to survive against a Ghost copy.
I mean, this is a little bit of an advantage, isn't it? Just having a little bit of extra strength. Also getting Yasuo another round to stack up his stacks, which must be pretty ludicrous at this point. You can see, though, the front line is still melting a little bit, but Volta, at least against the Ghost copy, gets the win.
Checking in, Salvi and Scapeus. Salvi taking a loss here, and he remains on top.
But look at the goal from both Salvi as well as Scapeus here. Salvi is going to be the first player to go towards that level 10. Sees a headliner Alawi in the shop here. So if there's at some point any headliner Ezreal showing up here, we could see an upgrade to a headliner of a 5 cost.
And this front line's really coming together big time. We've got the Ziggs 2-star as well. Salvi's backline is looking amazing. It's something that we've got a couple of frontliners. Let's check in with what Scapeus is doing specifically. The emotional connection, Emo 4 board, built around the 1 cost you like it so much makes. Let's see if we can get Scapeus into top 2.
Volta was strong enough against the Ghost copy, but here comes the real deal, and look at this Yasuo, man! He is just absolutely smurfing through the backline, taking out the Annie from the start. The only thing that still remains standing for Scapeus is that Akali, and it is going to be enough. This matchup is so good for Volta, but Salvi also won against the Ghost copy. Nobody is giving anyone anything here.
I have to wonder at this point if Scapeus might just be relying on Salvi to remove Volta for him if it's a matchup he can't win otherwise. Certainly Volta's only got 1 life, so only 1 round, 1 loss sends him out and pushes Salvi even further up. This is still a deeply meaningful finish, both Scapeus and Volta, however it goes, because they are amongst the lowest scoring players in the finals right now.
I'm just see whether or not we're going to be seeing a reforging coming through here from the likes of Salvi, right? Because you don't necessarily need to get that Ionic Spark, but the Guardbreaker is just going to be that third 6 item. So I'm just going to go for a different defensive item. Not going to be the case here. It just goes for the Ionic Spark. A little bit extra, a little bit extra damage on the front line here. A nice little touch.
We'll see. Salvi go up against Volta. The last time we saw this matchup, it did not end well for Volterix. Can it do it this time around? Trash finds the stun onto Yasuo from the get-go. Lucian and Ezreal just absolutely demolishing the Yasuo, and that is going to be all she wrote.
Skipper's got to be very pleased with that. Now at least has one less opponent and one more tournament point overall. But Salvi is posturing here. If he gets first place, he leaps ahead of the pack and positions himself as the regional champion in waiting. These boards are absolutely cracked. I don't know how much stronger they can get.
And at some point, you kind of have to ask yourself, right? This is the third time Salvi is getting away with an Ezreal board. The last 2 games, it was also Ezreal coming out on top, getting that first place. Players need to try and contest him, or they're letting him run away with it.
Let's see if he can do it right now. So, I mean, you see, Skipper's is still trying to, he mentioned the positioning was the key to his game, so he's going to be tweaking things between every round, but the front line is out of this world strong for Salvi. There's just too much there to kill. I think Skipper's cooked, but I don't think it's just comparable in terms of raw power.
Yeah, the thing is that you have a Vex 2 is not going to be a good enough secondary carry at this point in time, right? Had this Akali had like best in slot items and not just a Thieves Glove, maybe we'll start making a case for something here, but this board from Salvi is just way too strong to really be touched at this point, even with the 11 units potential on Skipper's board here. But you can see he has been selling off here, rebuilding some economy out of this Dragon stage for a big roll down on 7-1.
Both players really, right? Both of them trying to make a little bit of econ, seeing what they can get from this anvil here. Last upgrades coming through on both sides, but the shop gods are not too kind to them.
All Skipper's has really been able to do is be able to jam in a little bit of extra powers. Yeah, Salvi finds yet another upgraded 5 cost. I mean, he's at level 10. He's on a, while Skipper's may be there as well, he hasn't been there with the same amount of money. We do have a Lucian upgrade, but we don't have any items on him as of yet. I think this is surely going to be the end of the line.
Both of these players over 20 HP as they go up against each other one more time. The Annie in the backline for Skipper's has been doing so much heavy lifting, but she is going to get knocked out in the same fashion as before, as Salvi takes the 3rd game of the day for himself.